Thank you so much, Sarah, and again to the Independent. Let's get right into our wonderful set of panelists. Let me tell you a bit about them. You'll see them on the screen. First up is Alice Ford. Alice, could you wave so everybody can see you? There we go. Alice is with California Builder Services. She has over 35 years of experience in working with subdivisions in particular. Her background includes title, escrow, marketing, budgets, and DRE processing. Alice also provides whatever assistance or training is necessary to ensure that all of her clients understand the process and requirements for new home sales and homeowner association startups. With her years of experience, she is also capable of providing clients with feedback on the structure of their development. Welcome, Alice. Now I'm going to go to Scott. Scott, would you wave for everybody, please? There you are. Scott is also with California Builder Services. He has a military background. Thank you for your service, Scott. And experience in law enforcement. He is keenly sensitive to legal compliance issues, specializing in the DRE process and reserve studies. Scott has handled full caseloads of projects ranging from small parcel maps to large multi-phase condominiums. Scott completed his MBA and has been instrumental in moving services into a new era of service through technology. Thank you for being here today, Scott. And then we have Jeremy Boschman with Young Construction. There's Jeremy waving. And for the past 9 years, but as part of his 25 years of experience in construction, he has worked his way up from laborer to carpenter to foreman to superintendent and to senior project manager, now with Young Construction. And he holds a BA in sociology from UCSB. Welcome to all 3 of our panelists. Thank you so much for your time and expertise being with us today. So let's get right into the topic of building and remodeling in today's market. And Scott and Alice, if you would please kick it off and share with us your experience and area of client expertise and insights for our members.
Well, there is a little confusion because, as our name implies, California Builder Services does provide services to builders. However, we deal with new homes. We don't deal with remodels. The extent of our remodeling interaction is when we have a condominium conversion project. So we will defer to Jeremy when you want to address remodeling and processes.
Okay, why don't you, the 2 of you, get right into new building and HOAs, which sounds like is your niche area of expertise.
Okay, great. Well, so Santa Barbara County does have new growth and new development happening, not necessarily on any large scale in the city, but the county at large. We have master planned communities in northern Santa Barbara County, Santa Maria, Fringe, Orchid, Lompoc, and surrounds. But frankly, that's a trend that's happening statewide outside of Santa Barbara County. For years, we've all heard about Los Angeles, Orange County, San Diego, Riverside County, just being taken over by master planned communities. And quite frankly, that trend has grown throughout the state. We have today, development is changing. The overall structure of new development and new homes has come to a new level where you have a land development entity who creates the division of land, and they sell individual neighborhoods or sub-communities to builders who build homes individually. So common interest developments are the future. If you live in a single family detached home with no association. You are one of what was a popular trend. And in certain areas, certainly the city of Santa Maria has some, city of Lompoc, but for the most part, the new development era is common interest. And that means there's an association to be dealt with. And for the real estate professionals, that means there's a whole new realm of information that your buyers need to become very much aware of. When you're making a purchase decision, or when the buyer is, they need to be educated on what does that association do? What are the association responsibilities? And significantly, what is the overall financial health of that association? And Scott, you want to explain what that means?
So I specialize in reserve studies, which affect all associations in the state of California. Every 3 years, that association has to hire a reserve specialist like myself to go out, do an inspection on the property, make sure that things are being maintained the way they should, and that there's a forecasted budget on any increases to those funds. So meaning the HOA dues will be increasing in the future years. And one thing that we're seeing, especially in the last 12 to 24 months, is the cost of insurance, and even the ability to obtain insurance is going up and getting much more difficult. On the other side of that coin, no one wants their HOA fees to increase. So what we're seeing is they're increasing their operating budget to absorb that insurance cost, and they're relaxing. Instead of saying we're going to paint the building every 5 years, let's paint it every 7 years. And you may not know that right now, which is why selfishly, I hope people read the studies that I create that says the board has opted to push paint out 7 years or 10 years, or they're no longer going to maintain or replace this fence. Some HOAs through the board they're dropping their own maintenance responsibilities, kind of line item by line item. And it may still say, the HOA is 70% funded or whatever it may be, but you really have to read down and figure out why are they 70% funded and not 80, or where's that trend going? Is it going down because they don't want to increase dues to absorb the cost of rising insurance or whatever it may be? And so that's a trend that we're seeing. And if we open up our history books back to the recession of 2008, we'll see that the first thing that started going was people stopped paying their HOA fees before they stopped paying their mortgage. And so one really important thing to look at when you're selling homes in an HOA is, what's that delinquency report? What's that delinquency percentage of the HOA? Are people paying their dues? Are those dues going to the right things, like maintenance and long-term repairs of that building or that association? So this is a trend that we're starting to see. I just a couple of days ago, I got off the phone with a guy in the Central Coast, I want to say Pismo area, where his HOA just dropped him, or the insurance company just dropped him. So we no longer insure HOAs, just all together. So now he's kind of scrambling to get new insurance, and what he's up against are 400% rate increases. And so this is a major trend. CAI and CACM, which are the association management associations that I belong to, are working with the State Department of Insurance, trying to get some solution. But we are seeing a major increase in the operating costs of HOAs, but no one wants to increase dues. So an HOA may look well-funded today, but it's on a downward trajectory. And that's something important to notify of your buyers and to be aware of when you're selling in communities.
Scott, if I could ask you, Scott, as a follow-on, in speaking with some local architects about various lawsuits throughout the state regarding construction, condominium construction vis-a-vis HOA fees and so forth, can you speak to us about advice you might have for new purchasers of condos vis-a-vis construction, quality of construction, and perhaps research due diligence that might put them in a more savvy position and more protected position?
Sure, absolutely. The elephant in my room, at least, is the balcony collapse in Berkeley. That was a major incident that led to very strong legislation that said any balcony on a cantilever style requires that inspection every 10 years, and it's an invasive inspection, which means they actually drill in a hole into your deck and make sure that there's no wood rot and things like that. There are exceptions to that legislation or that requirement, but you wouldn't know that unless you knew what type of construction was built. For example, if that balcony is steel or steel reinforced, you don't need that inspection. But you have no way of knowing, well, most of the time you don't have a way of knowing what was used or how it was constructed just on the outside. So that is, it's the elephant in my room in HOA fees and HOA planning is what is the construction of balconies? Or is it cantilevered? Is it hanging past the footprint of the building and of the roof line? Because if it's not, then it's not. If the roof covers the balcony, then you don't need that inspection. So as it relates to construction, definitely finding out what building materials were used. Is it a steel frame, wood frame? If there are balconies, are they steel or wood beam? Has that inspection been completed? Part of that law says that it has to be completed within a certain amount of time, and then every 10 years thereafter. I think it's 9 years the first time, 9 years from when it was constructed. So asking, has that inspection been completed?
And is it being budgeted for?
Right.
Those inspections are fairly expensive. In many cases.
Several thousands of dollars.
Right. So
Alice, I think you had a follow-on, I think, comment, and then I'm gonna transition over to Jeremy and we'll come back to you a little back and forth today. But go ahead, Alice. I think you had some thoughts, other thoughts you were gonna share.
Oh, it was, well, two things. It's decks, balconies, basically any elevated exterior element, EEE, that is elevated more than 6 feet from ground level. If it's cantilevered, it must be inspected.
And it's just another fee that those HOAs are having to incur, which leads back to, if they don't want to increase dues, but they have to comply with this law, the only other area to squeeze is to squeeze out those reserves and that reserve funding so that later on you won't have the money to maintain that building.
Great. This is, I'm sure, very helpful to the members. And let's come over to Jeremy now. And Jeremy, tell us from a young construction perspective about remodeling and some of the larger estate work that your firm specializes in.
For sure. Yeah, I would be speaking mostly on what we would refer to as gut remodeling. So more or less removing all of the finishes at minimum. Oftentimes there's increased square footage, all new finishes, all new mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. We don't do work in the area of, for instance, kitchen remodels and so forth. And in new construction, we typically are doing projects that are in the range of $3 to $20 million with construction budgets. What I'd like to address is currently we're seeing a large influx of out-of-state buyers, and managing expectations with out-of-state buyers has been a continuous issue with us. Oftentimes they are purchasing a lot in hillside areas of Santa Barbara and expecting that they are going to be able to construct a new or remodel an existing residence for cost per square foot that they are familiar with in an area such as Arizona or the Southern United States or the Midwest. And when they come to Santa Barbara, it's an incredible shock. We've had several projects basically come to a grinding halt after the purchase of property or, large buildings with the intent of remodeling, when they recognize the unique cost, both in California, but very specific to Santa Barbara and sort of the Santa Barbara Montecito area. So we are large proponents of using a due diligence worksheet when entering into the purchase of any property. And things on that worksheet that are very critical and important are oftentimes site specific. And so things such as soils reports, they typically exist, but are oftentimes not reviewed before the purchase of new properties. Things such as hillside instability issues, utility related issues. It is oftentimes the case that it may be impossible to upgrade SCE electrical service. And so the intended construction of a 5,000 square foot home becomes an impossibility. So, and all of these things can come as an incredible shock to out of state and even local purchasers of properties. Currently, we are seeing extremely long delays in the permitting process, starting basically at the design level. And it is so acute at the moment that we are in pre-construction with 2 clients and they are not able to hire a design firm. And so it's very important that out of state and even local purchasers of properties understand that it may be anywhere from 2 to 3 and oftentimes 4 years for their dream home to become a reality if they purchase raw land or even a gut remodel. And it could be several months for them to find a design firm that has capacity to take on the preliminary design. Once the preliminary design is developed, you can assume several months working with a planning reviewer. If it's a property that is in the coastal zone, so typically anywhere on the west or southern side of the 101, you can add an additional 6 months to a year for approval. Once the initial approvals are granted, then it enters either the county or the city building departments, where oftentimes we're seeing 2 to 3 months for the initial review and 1 to 2 rounds of corrections, which can oftentimes take 6 to 8 weeks, depending on their scope. So it can be said at the moment, if an out-of-state buyer were to purchase lot in Montecito, for instance, it could be 18 months before a building permit is issued. And then depending on the size of the project, anywhere from a year to 2 and oftentimes 3 years for the construction of that project. We're also currently experiencing, and I think everyone's well aware of this, but labor shortages and material cost increases. And those have anecdotally played out on current projects in which we've had to issue large owners change orders for in this very recent case for an increase in the cost of lumber, which we've seen spike, I think, in early June at 50% higher for certain engineered products above pre-pandemic cost. Those are starting to come back down, but we imagine that they will never return to the pre-pandemic pricing. So in the area of labor, we're having an acute shortage of labor, in which case most of our subcontractors and vendors are not able to staff projects sufficiently. And so they're running on short crews. We don't see potentially an easing of that in the near term. As you may all know, there is sort of a general shortage of unskilled and skilled labor in the state as it relates to construction. So all of these things collectively have a huge impact on both the timeline and the budget for gut remodels and new construction. That's a general overview of kind of where we're at and where we're heading. Unfortunately, it's not probably the perfect market for buyers and owners of property to go into the construction of new homes. And Santa Barbara is very unique. We probably expect this to last anywhere from 2 to 3 years. Most of the larger general contractors in town that specialize in new construction and gut remodels have a backlog of projects that would take them out 3, even 4 years. So we're doing what we can, but we honestly are having new projects come to our office on a weekly basis at the moment. So it's a very interesting time for us.
Indeed, Jeremy. And you mentioned, I thought I heard you say 50% increase right now of the spike in materials cost, but you think that's coming down a bit. Where do you think it's going to settle, just to give all of us a sense in the coming months, perhaps by the end of this year? Do you have a prediction for us?
Yeah, so we did sort of a non-scientific survey of the local lumber yards, some of the steel contractors and so forth. And the price increases are not consistent across the board. We are seeing a current spike in steel pricing that has the raw reinforcing bar materials up over 50% from pre-pandemic times. Everyone expects that there will be a decrease that we probably won't realize until probably the 3rd or 4th quarter of next year. And there's many factors involved. One is just the sharp increase in construction activity, and then just global demand has spiked. There's trucking delays, there are shipping delays. Everything is coming together all at once. So in the area of lumber, as I mentioned, there is currently we're seeing some decrease in the cost of lumber. And the lumberyard expects that they're going to have sort of a settling out point that'll put pricing of lumber at approximately 25% higher than pre-pandemic pricing, and that pricing will most likely never return to pre-pandemic pricing. So, and they expect that sort of settling to occur early next year. Every area, every material has a unique issue. There's some issues in the area of insulation, which don't necessarily relate to pandemic, but rather relate to the weather, the extraordinary weather they had in Texas. It turns out that most of insulation, or a large part of insulation products, are produced in factories in Texas. And so they've seen a significant increase up to 30%, and a really acute shortage of materials. So we've actually had to change specifications on several projects recently to go away from materials that were no longer available. So yeah, and then other things. One of the other things that we're seeing is most of the subcontractors are being put in a position to add approximately 5% fuel surcharge to over the top of all of their labor, to basically cover the cost of trucks, for their employees, as well as trucking generally. And so that is coming across, based on the fact that, fuel prices are up to $4.55 a gallon. That will probably never go away. So, and then the competition within labor markets are assuming that, there is actually, there's hiring competition. And so we currently internally have increased wages by about 7. And that is, we've seen an increase in wages of between 5 and 15% across the trades in town over the last 6 months, just in an effort to maintain, contractors' workforces so that they can staff projects. So, yeah, all of these things together, it's the best of times and the worst of times. So, it's, a lot of this is probably somewhat unique to Santa Barbara, especially the timelines. The idea that it takes 3 years to get a project completed is sort of extraordinary. There are obviously other areas of the country where the permitting process is much less intense. So.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. I'm
Sure.
wondering if between all three of you, I don't know if this would be helpful, but if there are any differentiators between your client work in the county, an unincorporated county? You mentioned Montecito. We also have Hope Ranch in the unincorporated county versus the city of Santa Barbara. Do you see, certainly not from like a materials cost, labor shortage, that's across the board, but are there anything else in terms of your clients' experiences with seeking permits in either new or remodels? And I don't know if Jeremy, you want to start, but then I'd like to come back to Scott and Alice on that.
I can speak to that. So as we probably know, there are different approval processes in the different areas. So there's Santa Barbara City, which is unique, and then there's the county, and then there's areas of the county. So Montecito, and as we all know, Montecito has the MBAR, which is the most stringent of all of the architectural review boards. And you can assume that MBAR approval is going to do two things. Oftentimes, it's going to force the design in certain directions that we wouldn't expect in the county generally, say in an area such as San Ysidro and so forth. And you can assume that there will be additional time, oftentimes because there's a high rejection rate of initial conceptual design. So the county in areas such as the San Ynez Valley is typically much more streamlined. The northern Santa Barbara County has its own permitting division or building department, and oftentimes their review times are less than the county office, which is located here in Santa Barbara. So the city is probably the one most unique aspect of the city is the Creeks division. The Creeks division deals with stormwater management, and on hillside lots, that's an issue that should never be overlooked. It can oftentimes add large percentages to the cost of construction. And the basic idea there is water is collected, water is oftentimes stored on site and then filtered before released back into either the ocean or into the groundwater supply. And in hillside construction, we are currently constructing a project in the Campanile Hill area, and the stormwater management or the Creeks division requirements have cost that client $750,000. So, and that is quite unique to Santa Barbara City. There are stormwater management requirements in the county generally, but they're by no means as stringent as the city. So yeah, and that is something that, you know, in the purchase of in the purchase of property, we really suggest that there's a due diligence process, and that's one of the items on our worksheet. And you'd want to look into that because it needs to be factored into the cost of construction. So
thank you so much, Jeremy. I think that's
Sure.
very helpful. And we have 69 participants today, so I'm sure this is of great value to all of the members. Scott and Alice, I'd like to come back to you to continue the conversation around your client experience, county versus the city or other cities, you know, within the county. What would you like to share with our members?
Well, we would substantiate what Jeremy said about the outlier offices. It is much more streamlined in the northern or the Santa Ynez Valley area. We have projects going in all of those areas, and by far the city of Santa Barbara is the most unyielding. You mentioned the stormwater filtration, and that is a hot topic statewide. We're seeing the stormwater filtration systems and stormwater management programs add millions of dollars to almost every project. And Santa Barbara County is definitely in that loop.
Anything you'd like to add, Scott, along those lines? Or okay.
We work on projects from Lake Tahoe to San Francisco to San Diego. And I think as a general rule of thumb, any city is harder to work with than the county. There's 58 counties, and they're all easier to work with than any of the cities. So no matter where you're at, the cities are always worse. But the shortage of manpower is far and wide. A lot of our, I'll do a reserve study that says we need to paint next year, and painters won't even return calls or they won't even bid on it unless it's going to be a $20,000 contract. And they can't even tell you when they will be able to bid on it. And so just from, new construction, remodeling, all the way down to, we had one where the mailbox was rusted out and the HOA just wanted to buy a new mailbox and they couldn't even find a handyman to do it. So it's the valley is wide and deep when it comes to the labor shortage, and just any type of housing remodels or general maintenance to the homes and common area within a community. I mean, we're hiring. If anyone knows anyone, it's a problem that we're all facing, more so in the real estate industry, I think.
One of the other things that Jeremy talked about was the supply chain snafus, and we agree with everything that Jeremy has said. But you might be talking about a multi-million-dollar renovation in Montecito, and the perception is that a tract housing that's only $500,000 homes would be much different. But the fact is, appliances, just the availability of obtaining appliances and the costs of same have taken a 4 to 6 month construction cycle on a tract home out to 11 to 14 months. So it is pervasive. It is everywhere.
Well, I'm noticing that we have a number of questions coming through. Why don't we go ahead and go to that now? I think some interactive Q&A I think could be of great value to everyone. Let me start up with Michael. Says, although I know it varies greatly, what is a rough estimate of the cost per square foot for renovation of middle range homes, not Montecito? And in Santa Barbara, what are the costs of the renovations and house additions? Why are they so high in Santa Barbara, even compared to LA and other areas? There's a lot in there. So whoever would like to take that and just answer it as briefly as possible.
Yeah, I can jump into that. So I'm just going to speak to a gut remodel again, down to the studs, all new MEP, all new finishes. The reason that it's unique to Santa Barbara, one, is that we have a class of subcontractors that's quite good. The product is always meant to be of a very high level. And so most of the contractors are smaller firms and they are all local. They pay higher wages and so forth. So that's part of it. In regards to the cost per square foot, we're always very careful to throw something out like that because there's so many components involved. Oftentimes there's a site work component, which shouldn't be overlooked. And oftentimes when it comes to a cost per square foot calculation, we're only considering the interior living space, where in Santa Barbara, there's oftentimes 25 or 30% of exterior living space. So all of those things need to be included. What we would suggest is that a conceptual budget is done as a part of the purchasing of a new property, where you can break all those items down. If I was to put a cost per square foot for a gut remodel, say in the Mesa area, we recently budgeted something at approximately $600 per square foot, which was all inclusive, meaning there was a site work component. There is the construction of the interior living space, the construction of the exterior living space, the soft cost, meaning architectural and consultation fees, and then the general conditions, which is the management of the project, and the contractor's fee. So now that varies wildly, and it's very hard to just throw out a number that is very meaningful without understanding some of the specifics of the project.
Right,
So,
right, sure, sure. Now, from Jean, she's asking, why have HOAs chosen the decision of coverage instead of assessments? Maybe back to Scott and Alice on that.
Well, the civil code requires associations to maintain a certain level of liability, directors and officers, and insurance coverage. In fact, every association of every common interest development has CC&Rs that stipulate what the coverage is. There are numerous lawsuits. Deborah mentioned lawsuits earlier today, but lawsuits occur and they can take an association down. You know, very famous ones, even 20 years ago, have been the basis for new laws and the basis for a new way of doing common interest developments. But never lose sight of the fact that people who serve as board of director members have an extra level, a heightened level of fiduciary obligation and responsibility to the association. And you need that coverage because you would be named as well. So we should never, ever lose our insurance. But unfortunately, with the fires and the natural disasters and calamities that have occurred over the last year, 2 years, the insurance industry has really had some challenges, and getting that insurance at any price is pretty important.
I had a project in Redding up in Northern California, and it was actually farmers, you know, massive insurance company. Farmers said, we don't insure HOAs anymore. And I kind of pleaded with them. I was like, it's just a road. It won't catch on fire, I promise, you know. And we ended up getting a policy out of it, but their initial gut reaction was, we don't do HOAs, you know. Car, homeowner, sure, but we don't insure HOAs. And that was farmers insurance. So when the big ones start getting out of the business, it's pretty bad.
Thank you, Scott. We're hearing some of those trends. I'd like to go to Lee's question. When you have the spike in building materials and construction, completely changes what your replacement costs are for insurance costs. Our advice to people, and Lee is in this field, advice to people is to work with a contractor and let them tell you what it would cost to replace your home that is currently, and then your insurance should be based on that. Most people are really underinsured if they were to have a significant loss because of inflated costs of materials and labor. I didn't know, Lee, if you had any specific question connected to your insights from being in this industry for our panelists, or you just wanted to share this information from your expertise. Lee.
I just thought I would share that information because it's part of the whole process. When you're buying property or you're buying a home, you plan on remodeling, or even if you have a loss, you know, you're currently insured for what you think the value of your home is. But if you were to lose your home right now, to get back, say, all of the finishes that you have and the woods that you have and materials and everything are probably going to be completely at a different cost than when you insured your home. So it's just an important factor in all this, that it's worth having a contractor come out and tell you currently, what would it cost to remodel my house right now? And and that's what you should be basing your insurance off of for those that are, you know, looking with new clients.
And Lee, we heard from many Montecito property owners following the Thomas fire and debris flow, the significant financial pain they went through with just what you were talking about. I mean, we've discussed this, we've had forums on this, and so I'm hoping this is very helpful for all of the members.
Homes that are now being rebuilt, all of a sudden they're requiring caissons when they never had that before. So there's a lot of factors that they're requiring now. So you're your insurance probably didn't cover that prior. So we always tell people to look every couple years, reevaluate where you are, because we do tend to have so many fires. So.
And then Jennifer has a question. What are some of the trends you're noticing in new remodels? Maybe to Jeremy on this.
In new remodels, yeah, in the larger custom residential market, I would say we haven't built a home in some time without a large exterior living space with connection to the interior, typically including, banks of glass doors that either pocket or bifold. That seems to be a must at the moment. Exterior kitchens, very popular. Those are going into all of the designs we see in the upper residential market. Home offices for sure, which has been typical, but just an absolute must at this point. And we're seeing most of the high-end residential now includes a lighting control system with automatic shades, which can be monitored from an iPhone or something like that. So those are probably the most popular trends, high-end residential.
Okay, very good. I'm just looking to see if we have any more questions. We have a little bit of time. Anyone else want to come in with one last question before I ask Sarah Sinclair on behalf of our sponsor, the Santa Barbara Independent, to say a few closing words before we go back to Casey to spin the raffle wheel, which is a very exciting part of our forum, I have to say. Anything else? Kind of going once, going twice? All questions are welcome. Okay, with that, let's give a hearty, warm appreciation clap to our three panelists, Jeremy, Scott, and Alice. Thank you so much for taking time out of your, as we can tell, your very busy professional lives and to share your experience, your clients' experiences with us. And with that, Sarah, I'll turn it back over to you for a few minutes.
Thank you so much, Deb. I really just wanted a couple of seconds to echo your thanks to our presenters and also to thank everyone for being here today. The Independent is very grateful to be an affiliate member of the association and also for the opportunity to sponsor today. I will put those links in the chat again so everyone has them. And a reminder about our prize that Casey is about to spin the wheel for. It is a $50 gift certificate to Fig Mountain, and whomever wins, that will go in the mail to you today. So thank you. Casey, are you ready to spin?
Did I see Terry Stain's name? Come on down, Terry Stain. Where's Terry?
Hi.
Hi, Terry. Congratulations.
That's awesome. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
You're going to Fig Mountain, Terry.
Can't wait. Thank you.
Hey, Terry, see my email there? Send me your address and it'll be in today's mail.
Beautiful. I will. Thanks again.
Okay, great.
All right.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Thanks for being with us today, Terry. And to everyone. Casey, are there any maybe closing announcements in terms of exciting events coming up for SBAOR?
Let's see. Well, we have Fiesta coming up. So Monday, August 2nd, I'm sure you've seen my email. It does have a link over to our ticketing platform. You guys can just order your tickets there and print them out and bring them to check in. And then we do have our annual golf tournament, Friday, September 10th. So we have lots of sponsors lining up for that, but make sure you get your info over to me if you guys would like to participate in that as well. I think that's it.
Thanks, Casey. And I've been asked, as I'm sure many members have been, as to when we might be returning to the headquarters for a variety of meetings, including these monthly forums that the Education Committee sponsors. Do you have any updates for the members on that?
I don't know if it's firm, but rumor has it, it looks like September that we'll be opening back up. I know Bob's on the call. Bob, do you want to chime in?
I think you covered it well there. We're kind of in a wait and see. And as we know, cases are increasing again. So, but as of right now, we're planning on coming back right after Labor Day.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Casey. With that, Casey, unless you have any other announcements, I'd like to once again thank everyone. This was a great turnout. I hope it was of value to all of the members. And please, let's come back to Jeremy Boschmain from Young Construction and also Scott and Alice Ford from California Builder Services. Thank you so much. We may invite you back. These are big, very meaningful topics and very current topics for all of us. So thanks to everyone. Giving you back a little bit of your lunchtime. Have a great day. Please stay safe, and we'll hope to see you all again very soon.